Hello there, world of tankers. Welcome to the channel. I'm your host, Droodles Blitz, and in today's video, we are going to be talking about update 5.5. I've touched upon this topic a little bit in the past every now and then, mainly to stop some misinformation. Update 5.5 is one of those things that a lot of people say is the worst update ever for Blitz, destroyed the game, and is the reason why Blitz is in such a bad state right now. And I just don't see where this is coming from. I mean, I understand why people get angry about things, but this is not one of those moments where I understand the anger. And I'll be explaining why in today's video. I've watched about half of Economics Mate's video here, and I like Eco. He's a chill dude. We're friends. But obviously, everybody has their own differing opinions. And whenever I see somebody post a video which showcases their opinions, I think it's also in my right to post a video showcasing my opinions. And this isn't attack towards him at all. This is more just a general reasoning to why update 5.5 really did nothing to hurt the game, and I think a lot of people just clearly overestimate the problems with Blitz, right? If you actually read the major reason why a lot of people think update 5.5 ruined Blitz is this comment here is the best example, right? Worst is a massive understatement. It completely changed the game, not in a good way. This update is why tiers 8 through 10 are now flooded with 500 battles played, 41% goofs that clearly have no idea what they're doing. Um, is that true though? Is that actually true? Like, did Wargaming actually make it to that 40%ers are able to get up to a tier 10 within 500 games, and they weren't able to previously, or just buy their way there? Well, let's first of all start off with the fact that you could just buy a tier 10. Before update 5.5 existed, there was still the Chieftain Mark 6 and WZ121B in the game, both which were available for $100. So you could literally buy your way to a tier 10. That's the first thing I want to clarify. Second of all, Noob exists. For anybody that doesn't know what update 5.5 is, by the way, because there's probably a lot of people who haven't played the game when update 5.5 was released, essentially what it did is it made it so that the lower tiers were less confusing. There were like maybe 30 low tier tanks in Germany, and now there's maybe like 10. So Wargaming took away a decent amount of the vehicles that were in low tiers, and their reasoning was because a lot of them were too overpowered, and not only that, but made the lines a little bit too confusing. So they wanted to make the lines a little more straightforward so that they branched off into each individual characteristic, and that it was a little bit easier to play. That was their reasoning behind 5.5, and honestly, I don't entirely disagree, and I'll explain why in just a moment. But let's start off with that comment, right? The major reason why people say 5.5 is so bad is because it allows people to grind down the lines faster, to make their way to tier 10, and destroy the matchmaking. But that's just not true, because Noob is a thing, and it's been a thing for the last ever years since Blitz came out, 10 years. Noob essentially makes it so that if you're in an account which has it's around 5,500 to 6,000 games, you are always going to be placed into battles which are also under 5,500 to 6,000 games. That's usually how the matchmaking works. This here is a normal battle with normal matchmaking. We can see that I am on my press account. I had a pretty good game in my 1-2-1, and up against me, I have a 28,000 battle player, 77,000 battle player, 19,000 games, 18,000 games, 12,000 games, and 38,000 games. Go to the enemy account, 50,000 battles, 7,800, 9,600, 34,000, 89,000, 24,000, and 7,300. As we can see, there's not a single account in this battle that has under 5,000 games. And that's because I am not in noob matchmaking. But let's say I'm playing Blitz at like 3 a.m. And sometimes when I play Blitz at a really, really early day, you will get into noob matchmaking battles. Let me see if this one's noob No, this one appears to be normal matchmaking. As we can see again, every single player on this game has over 5,000 games for the most part. I mean, there's one player there, but that player had a 70%, and they were over 5K games still, so they're probably nearing the end of their Noob cycle. In general, we can see again that that game had no Noob players. But if we take a look at this game in my M6 show, this one, for some reason, did put me into Noob matchmaking. If we take a look at the battle counts on all these players, the Foch, 2,800 games, the 183, 4,000 games. Type 71, 1,600 games. Bashation, 4,000 games. We can see the difference here. Noob puts you in games where mainly most of the players are either terrible at the game, like this person with a 39% and 85,000 games, or they have really low battle counts, as we can see, 4,000 games, 7,000 games. For the most part, this is Noob It's people that have 5,000 and less being thrown into battles. So the argument that says, oh, well, players with 500 battles are constantly getting into my teams and games is wrong. They're not. Unless you are a player who yourself does not have over 5,000 games, you are not realistically going to be getting into battles like this. It is very rare for me to get into games like this. It's only when I'm playing at certain times at like 3 to 4 a.m. Apart from that, I almost never get into Noob MM. The reason teams suck are because of bad players like this. There are people that have 39% win rate with 85,000 games and a max damage of 4,000. That's it. The highest damage this player has ever achieved is 4,000 damage. Think about that. I've done 4,000 in tier 6. Like, that's insane. For the most part, in the games that you play, the reason why your teams suck is probably down to the fact that just in reality, it's because you have a lot of players like this, which are 40% win rate with 8,000 games played. If you haven't learned how to play the game in 8,000 battles, like, I don't know what to say. If we pull out a calculator really quick, right? And we say that the average game lasts 3 minutes. So we do 8,000 times 3 minutes, okay? So that should be what, 21,000? Yep. Oh, no, 24,000. Sorry. 7 times 3 is 21. So we have 24,000 minutes of gameplay. Divide that by 60. So a person who has played 8,000 games has realistically put over 400 hours of time into Blitz. To put that into your mind, I have put about 500 hours of time into Helldivers 2, and I'm able to do level 10 Helldives. That is the hardest difficulty in the game, which most players aren't able to do, and I can do them solo, and you're supposed to do them with groups. You're telling me that in 400 hours, which is more time than you probably need to become a licensed pilot, you couldn't learn how to play the game? Nah. Update 5.5 isn't the reason these players suck. It's the fact that they just suck in general. They don't know how to play the game. They don't learn how to get better. Now that is actually a very low account. Oh, well, actually, looks like this also might be a Noob MM battle, as we can see here. All these battles are close to 5K or under. But what I'm trying to get at here is most of the times you have players that suck on your team. It is not the players that are low win rate, low battle count. It is usually the players that are super high battle count and super low win rate. I need to find the game where I went up against Tufir. He's a player that I constantly get in my games, and I always laugh when I do. Yeah, here we go. This is a great example. 150,000 games played, 44.93% win rate. Let's do that math really quick, right? 150,000 games played, multiplied by 3 minutes, divided by 60, so we get hours. This person has put, at minimum, 7,500 hours into Blitz. You think update 5.5 is going to stop them from sucking? No. At the end of the day, it did not affect the bad players. The bad players were going to be bad one way or another. And second of all, the idea that removing like a couple low tiers from the game is going to stop people from grinding or allow them to grind the lines faster doesn't really make sense. What 5.5 did is it removed a lot of the tanks that existed in this area here. There were probably tanks here, there were tanks over here. For example, the VK3601H had 2 tanks before it that you had to grind. You had the tier 5 and 4 German heavies, being the VK3001H and the DW2, which we can see here. You can see they're both very similar, and these were both tanks that I remember grinding back in the day. Now, maybe to get both of these tanks equipped and unlocked, it would cost you, I don't know, 10,000, maybe 15,000 XP in total. Trust me, 15,000 XP isn't going to stop people from grinding lines faster. 5.5 is not the reason why Blitz is in a bad state. In fact, 5.5 really helped Blitz, mainly because of the fact it removed overpowered low-tier vehicles which had the ability to ruin people's games. A great example of this is vehicles like the T7 car and the T82. The T82 used to feature a derp gun which had around 400 average damage with high explosive, and not only that, but it had really good high explosive pen. It had the ability realistically to one-shot most tier 3 and tier 2 vehicles. I remember it. I remember playing it back in the day. It was completely busted. And it wasn't just the T82. Remember the Hetzer? The Hetzer used to feature a derp gun, which is now on the VK2801. This gun here used to be on a tier... Oh, no. Is it this gun? Yeah. This gun used to be on a tier 4 tank destroyer. 330 damage on the AP, 410 on the high explosive with the same pen values. That used to be on this tier 4 right here. Is that a good balancing decision? No, it shouldn't have been on the tank. And I'm glad that Wargaming removed the ability for vehicles to one-shot. It was never the low win rate low battle count players that were abusing vehicles like the T-82 and the Hetzer. It was people that had thousands of games, usually tens of thousands of games, that were going down in the low tiers because they didn't want to learn how to play the game, and they were using these vehicles to abuse the game and destroy people that were beginning. That's why update 5.5 was released. And I fully agree with that decision making. I think removing the ability for people to be absolute douchebags and ruin low tier gameplay is fine with me. And I'm glad that Wargaming nerfed a lot of the low tier vehicles. Look at the Kenyatta. I mean, the thing's also getting nerfed. Wargaming even announced it. Good. Kenyatta should not exist in the way it does. Why does this light tank have 2,000 damage per minute? It doesn't make sense. Good. Nerf it to the ground. I could care less. If you're mad that your prized Kenyatta gets nerfed, even though it's been literally overpowered for like the last 30 years, and not only that, has the ability to literally be aced every game you play in it, it shouldn't exist. It really shouldn't. I'm completely fine with 5.5. And I've got perfect proof on why 5.5 did not hurt the game at all, and what other reasons have hurt the game, right? First of all, the major reason why the game it feels a lot less skilled now is because of this thing called game modes. Game modes do not affect stats, they do not affect win rate, damage, anything. But what they do is allow you to grind up lines faster. You can be in a tier 5, you can play game modes all the way up to tier 10. And you can drive stock tanks, you can drive whatever you want. Game modes are the major reason why people are able to basically get up these lines so fast. Because, you know, take a boss mode battle, right? In boss mode, you're able to pretend you're boss and you win and you've got a ×2 XP booster on. If you win as boss with a ×2 XP booster and you've dealt 15 to 20,000 damage, which I feel like is almost on the lower end, you're still going to get like 15 to 20,000 experience in one game on a ×2 booster. I have a video on my channel somewhere where I had a ×10 booster and I was boss and I had also XP or a credit booster on, and I earned about 500,000 credits in one game and earned over 50,000 experience. Yes, you heard that right. 50,000 experience. I would have been able to grind a tier 10 in about 5 games. Now, if you're telling me 5.5 is the problem and the root cause of people being able to grind lines faster, it's not. It's the fact that we have game modes and we have boosters. Boosters didn't exist back in the day, but they do now. The only boosters that existed back in the day were ×2 XP. But nowadays, we have 8 billion XP boosters, which anybody can get their hands on at any given moment. I mean, basically any crate you buy has XP boosters. I mean, watch this. I'm going to open up a single mega container here, and in this mega container is guaranteed to give me either XP or boosters. Here we go. Let's open it. Oh, actually, I got a bunch of crates on this account, but watch. Here we go. Open it up, and there you go. 2 × 3 boosters. There you go. That's why. This is why, though, the game is so, like, fast to grind. Look at this. 2 × 4 boosters. If I play these ×4 boosters when there is a game mode out, like boss mode or uprising, I can literally earn 20 to 30,000 XP with a single win. That is why the game is so stupid right now. Also, what the heck are these crates? I don't even know what these things are. Typical tank. I don't even know what those things are. Either way, I think we can understand my point. There are many reasons to why the game is in a bad state right now. It is the poor balancing from Wargaming. It is the excessive use of boosters, which they constantly give out in every free event. And don't get me wrong, I'm fine with them giving them out, because again, I think that the game is destroyed due to the players that have 50, 60,000 games that don't learn how to get better. If you're a new player and you're not very good at the game, that's understandable. You have an excuse. If you're a player who has 50,000 games and you're rocking a 42% win rate, you don't really have an excuse. You've played the game for more hours than you can count, and yet you still haven't learned how to get better. I think a lot of people use 5.5 as an excuse for the game's downfall, when in reality it isn't. As I said, it's a lot of these other factors put into combination. It's a good thing that Wargaming removed overpowered vehicles at low tier. And vehicles like the KV-13 and the VK-3002, which were removed, I just don't really see them being that big of a deal. I mean, the KV-13 is a pretty unremarkable tank. The gun is average at best. It's got 2,500 DPM. It's got 5 degrees of gun depression. I mean, I just don't really see much of a reason to drive a KV-13 when you have a T-43 on the tech tree, which features not only more DPM, not only more gun depression, but it's basically just a better tank in general. You also have the T-44-85 and T-34-85 Rudy, which are also just kind of flat better when you actually take a look at their capabilities. So I don't know. You can let me know your feelings in the comments down below. And this isn't really an attack at like eco or anything like that. It's just more like I think a lot of people like to make reasons and excuses to why the game is in a bad state right now, which don't really make sense. I think we should have wargaming accountable for things that are actually a problem for the game and not linger on something that happened like 5 years ago, which really didn't affect the game too much. But you can let me know your personal feelings. I have been quite adamant since 5.5 was released into the game that it hasn't hurt Blitz, and I will still be adamant at this point. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.